Welcome back to Jump Scare. I'm Betty.
And I'm Chad.
This week, we cover The Manor.
I wasn't ready for this change, but my prognosis isn't good.
You don't belong here.
Don't worry, I'll be okay. Whatever's coming next, I don't want my family to see me like that.
How do you like your new home?
It's beautiful.
Takes a bit of time, but you'll fit right in.
Anyone there?
Are you okay?
Last night, I saw something.
What was it? Not being able to distinguish between what's real and what's a dream. That's a sign of dementia.
Whatever I've seen at night, it's real. Mom, we all want you to feel better. Why won't you believe me? I need to get out of this place. The only way you're getting out of here is in a box.
Look at these names. My roommate, she died last night. All the others have died too.
I'm not crazy! When you experience something disorienting, close your eyes and count to 5. 4, 5. When you open them again, whatever you saw or heard will be gone.
So this film is on Amazon Prime, and it's one of the Blumhouse productions that have joined up with Amazon to put out this movie. It's starring Barbara Hershey, which right off the bat, I'm like, Barbara Hershey's in it, I have to see this movie. And you may or may not know, she is from The Entity, the Insidious collection, all of the Insidious films, and also has done a ton of film and TV, and also Black Swan. She was also in Black Swan. So I love her. She's fantastic. And she does not disappoint in this film.
She does a great job in it.
She does do a great job. There's some other people in the film as well. Joe Larson, Mark Seeger, Stacey Travis. And this is directed by Axelle Carolyn.
The other guy that's probably the biggest known out of this group plays one of the residents of the manor is Bruce Davison, who you'd know from everything from like the 80s on. He's been in the X-Men movies as the evil senator that was trying to ban the X-Men. He's been in everything.
Yeah, there's recognizable character actor faces within this film. The film, right, like when we watched the trailer, and I was like, okay, I'm intrigued. The horror genre, I'm not going to say is ageist, but there are a ton of films where the teenagers are being stalked by all kinds of things. You know, we have the movies in between where it's, you know, mostly regular, non-teenage aged people going through stuff.
Horror usually goes from about the age of like they're 5 years old up until about they're 35 to 40. And then it kind of tops out at that. And there's not a lot of movies about people that are over 40 or so in the horror. And if it is, they're the old demon expert brought in to consult on everything, you know. Oh, we've got to talk to old man Jones down at the library. He's 50 this year. He's managed to survive longer than anyone else in this town. You know, you're like, wait, what?
Exactly.
But yeah, so to have the horror movie where the primary cast is all people over the age of 60 is pretty different.
And I understand why that would be. I mean, let's be real. If you are plus 60 years old, you're already knocking on death's door, right? So it's like...
You're not going to be doing a lot of running and fighting, and there's probably not a lot of call for sex scenes with senior citizens. So that kind of... A lot of horror depends on people running around, jumping out, doing fighting, and then, of course, in horror movies, there's always sex scenes. there's probably not a lot of people that are clamoring for the senior citizen sex scenes in the horror movie. They're like, come on, when are we going to see more old men and women naked having sex in the horror movies? That's probably not a lot of call for that.
I like how you went straight to the sex. That tells me a lot about you. But no, I was actually referring to the fact, like I said, they're already close to death. Maybe some of them are bedridden or do have some kind of illness. Death is an escape. They're, a lot are ready to leave this plane and go on to the next. And that's not going to really make for a good horror movie. I mean, it's like, oh, why are they mad? Like, why are they after, whatever. But recently, I would say probably within the last, I want to say 10 years, we've seen some elderly horror films like Late Phases, The Taking of Deborah Logan, recently another Blumhouse production, Bingo Hell, which is also on Amazon Prime, and this one, The Manor.
Yeah, there was another one, I can't think of the name of it now, that came out last year that was about a bunch of older men that had to help someone in a bar. It was kind of an Assault on Precinct 13 type thing. But there was that one too. But there's been a few more lately, and I think it's because a lot of these horror icons from the 70s and 80s are older now. So the movies, they shift the focus to be well, you're going to have Bruce Campbell in it. You're not going to have it be the same kind of movie that Bruce Campbell was doing when he was 25, you know? They've kind of shifted it around for that, which is good. It helps the actors out too.
Well, in this film, Barbara Hershey's character is Judith, and she suffers a stroke and voluntarily puts herself into a nursing home, which happens to be in a historic house.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. I mean, the land is very beautiful, peaceful looking. The house is nice. But unfortunately, because she voluntarily went there, she's mixed in with all the other elderly people that were left there by their, by their loved
families.
Ones. And they all have kind of issues. She's compared to them, she's in her 30s or 40s. She's still thriving, is of sound mind. And she does for herself. She was a retired ballet dancer. And, she's just wanting to do this to kind of not have her family deal with her upcoming issues, which is kind of on the borderline of Alzheimer's, and
she may have some Parkinson's to deal with. They're not sure. And so it's, that was the only thing I thought she overreacted a little bit, putting herself in that home like that. Maybe she could have just tried some in-home assistance for a little while first, but I think it was just to kind of show she was she didn't want to take help from her family. She didn't want to be a burden to them, but she kind of made the leap from living on her own to being in the full-on nursing home real quick. She may have overreacted a little bit.
She totally overreacted, but she's a strong-willed woman that's just this is what I'm doing. And even if her daughter would have spoken up, because her daughter didn't, the grandson, she has a very close relationship with her grandson. They love each other. They text each other. She's on the up with what's cool, and it's not she's trying to be cool. she just is. She's, obviously part of the ballet world, and she's an artist, and she's in the know. And, this is the extreme of, like you said, going from there to there is a lot, especially, and this is what always gets me in my professional life and just living a life. If you are going to do something that requires a contract, yes, it may be tedious. It may be 100 pages. I feel like they make them really long because they know people aren't going to sit there and read them. And in there's some trappings that's how they get you. But then you sign it. And then when you go back and say, hey, I didn't know I signed up to, have someone come into my house and view me pee every once in a while.
Yeah.
Some crazy shit like that. Obviously probably not to that extent, but some crazy shit, you can't fucking dispute it because you signed the agreement.
And the first red flag here should have been whenever she went to use her cell phone and they took it away from her. We're like, oh no, we don't allow cell phones here. I'm sorry, why not? That'd be my first thing is why can't I have a cell phone?
A lot of my grievance with the film, actually the only grievance I have, is the same thing, and it wouldn't make the film. Obviously, you have to have this in the film so it can cause an issue later. Is I understand probably for the elderly ones where they do have Alzheimer's or they whatever, you don't want them dialing 911. You don't want them calling their parent, their loved ones in a crazy rage, Okay, but for your able-bodied sound of mind people, they should be able to have their cell phones until it's proven by either the doctor, that they can no longer have that. So those privileges should be taken based on a base by base, case by case basis.
Yeah, they kind of, that would be my first red flag. They'd be like, oh, hell no, I'm getting out of this because, especially now, the phones are so important, and like the room looked like it was a little outdated. Like if you had told me if it wasn't for the cell phone line, this movie could have been set in the 80s because the building itself is very old. The the TV inside the individual rooms is like the old time too big, console TV with a VCR on top of it. And you're like, oh, okay, well, we haven't really updated. They didn't even update to DVD. They just stayed at VHS at this place,
So there are 3 abled body sound of mind people, and 2 of them are women, 2 of them are ladies, and 1 of them is the Bruce Davidson.
Yeah.
And they are, just living it up, and they're there.
They're having the life because they're some of the only people there besides her. They're the only ones that really seem to be completely with it.
Yeah. And on the plus side, you don't really know this probably until middle of the film. They actually have their own rooms. They don't have to share with anyone else. And their rooms are like fucking crazy living quarters. Like they're super nice. The ones with the ladies do share a room together, but it's like unlike any room. There's a couch. It looks like maybe a room that would belong to like a Southern woman, back in the day, like Victorian. All the furniture is antique and gorgeous, and it's just a beautiful room. And right off the bat, if I was Judith, okay, and the first question is asked to me is, so do you have any family? Red flag, red flag, red flag.
So if you went missing, how long would it be before anybody was to notice it? These are just the things I like to talk about when I first meet someone. No. I have an alarm on me that if I am more than 5 feet from this place, it's going to go off. That's exactly like, no, don't make that conversation with me, creepy person.
It's not hard to kind of put 2 and 2 together that maybe the nursing home is a little off. Maybe these new quote unquote friends are a little off. But for every weird thing they say something that's completely cool and like takes you back, out of the weirdness. And you're like, oh, okay, you're just such a hip, young-minded person. That's cool.
You're a little strange. Maybe you've been in the home a while. Your social skills aren't what they used to be. So you just say random things to people without thinking about it. It's the kind of person that sits down and says, so how much do you weigh? And you're like, what? Like, that's not necessarily sinister, but just weird,
We first meet the 2 ladies while Judith is taking with one of the caretakers, nurses that are on staff. She's kind of, when she first arrives, she kind of gets like the lay of the land. And the first 2 ladies that she meets, that of the sound mind ladies, they're like in a garden, like freaking growing herbs and shit. And there's a small scene in there. So there's subtle hints here and there throughout the film. But what you don't really know, and this is how, just like in Taking a Deborah Logan, what is this woman is now starting to lose her mind and seeing crazy shit? Or is this shit real? Like, is it in her mind or is it not in her mind? Her roommate is frantic right off the get-go. She's frantic. She's losing it. She has to be put down all the time. And it's always a struggle to get her to do anything. And she's forced basically her meds and all that stuff. And they're right to like give Judith the meds. They're like trying to like fucking dose her up with fucking sleeping pills so she fucking falls asleep. And you're like, okay, that's kind of whatever. But because she's a sound mind, she's like, no, I'm good. I don't need sleeping pills. And at first it's like, okay. but it slowly degrades as she degrades. And there's this entity that it reminded me kind of like, the film reminds me of The Guardian. If anyone's ever seen that movie, I don't even know if anyone's seen this movie, but it's one of those like lore movies of like, not the Green Man, but of like,
forest spirits.
Yeah, forest spirits and stuff. And what you have to do to appease. That's what this thing looks like. It looks like
It looks like the tree version of Swamp Thing.
Yes.
It's
perfect. And it's huge.
Yeah, it's a large tree thing coming through the windows at night, and it's probably not there for good reasons.
And it looks good.
Yeah.
It looks, the look is effective. It's not like, this is a straight to like Amazon. It's going to be a terrible, CGI or makeup or whatever. I don't even think there was there probably very subtle.
It's probably stuff that we don't notice because it was.
It looks good.
I mean, it looked good because I'm pretty sure Bruce Davison didn't do the one stunt that he had to do.
Oh, well, yes, of course. No, obviously, yes, that part.
That part was probably CGI.
That part was definitely CGI.
But, other than that, I didn't see a whole lot in there. Or it was so subtle and, you didn't really notice it. Which is fine. If you can pull it off without being obvious, more power to you.
Well, we probably should have said at the beginning that this is going to be a spoiler cast because you can't talk about the movie. The movie's already short.
Yeah, we haven't said anything yet. So from this point, I'll put it in the description. And then from this point on, there's going to be some spoilers. So if you haven't seen it yet and don't want to be spoiled, then go watch it and come back.
Yeah. I definitely recommend it. We both like the film. Yeah. So we're going to give our rating or what we feel about it right now, and then we'll give our rating at the end. I like the film because of those aspects, because it is something that's not the norm. It's taking a whole other age, range and put horror in their lives, but also relatable, kind of like The Visit 2. There's another movie.
Yeah.
That has, even though they weren't the main cast, the kids actually were, but the story's, about them. And how when you do get old, these things do come up or they can come up. And how to tell from reality. So just in like on all things, there's a question with her family. Now the doctor's involved and has said that she's degrading and, whatever. And you feel maybe this is wrong, but there's MRIs that they took from her. And you're like, okay, man, Granny's really lost it and it's sad. And her grandson always visits her. And, it gets to the point where the nursing home is like, look, you're just going to have to limit your visitations because it's not really helping her. She's not able to disconnect from her old life and adjust to her new life, which is really a boring life. There's nothing to do there. It's a nursing home. Like do Tai Chi, maybe some ballet dancing.
And especially since no one has a cell phone, no one has an updated TV or computer. It's very dull there. Everyone's just kind of sitting around looking out the windows. You got, a few people playing cards and board games, but it's very much like it's transported back in time when you go in there.
It's the waiting room to death.
Yeah. They have the one guy who, sits with his suitcase by the door because he thinks his son's coming to get him all the time.
His wife.
Or his wife, I'm sorry.
Who died.
Yeah, he thinks his wife is coming.
It's really sad.
Yeah, so he thinks his wife's coming for him, and you're like, oh, yeah, this is not a fun, happy place.
It is sad. The film does hold a place with me. I was it held me emotionally because I do have family members that have suffered from, those ailments and to the real part of it. And it's just really sad. So, that, if you do have that in your family, whatever, and you're very sensitive to it, this probably wouldn't be the film for you, but it's a part of it, but it's not the whole part. You know that it's not in her mind. She's actually is experiencing bullshit. And, this thing is after her. You just don't know why. And when the reveal comes, you're like, oh, okay, yes. And would you do the same thing in your situation? This is what I like about the film. The film, like in all movies, there's, the beginning where you have the development of the characters and then what's happening in the story. Then the middle where the shit is happening and you have to figure out the fucking mystery. And in the end where you defeat evil or you get killed, right? Those are basically what happens in these kinds of movies. So you get to the ending and evil is confronted. And you are like, okay, it's confronted. Now we've taken one of the people out. It actually, I mean, spoiler alert, it's actually the 3 people that are the well-sounded people in the nursing home. They're actually related to the the administrator of the nursing home, one of the nurses in the nursing home. They have relatives in there that are in cahoots with the elderly group, the trio.
The trio of witches.
Yes, the trio of witches. And they go out in, the fucking field or whatever, and they do their conjurings of this, like, tree entity. And he goes around and does their bidding. They technically are not really killing anyone, but they're using this entity so the entity could siphon the life of certain people in the community. And those certain people happen to be like the normal, like the well-bodied, sound-minded people. They leave the sick alone because what they want is the youth, what's ever left of, that person.
And in exchange for this, between like midnight and 6 a.m., they all become young again. They become like in their 20s and 30s again, and they can spend the night doing whatever they want. And there was a scene earlier in the movie where you saw some like young people sneaking into the grounds, like smoking weed and having a good time. And then later you realize, oh, that was the 3 older people.
Yeah.
They were going out on the town having a good time while they're in their younger bodies. And you're like, okay, I can see them having some fun.
And, Judith's grandson, she has told the grandson, there's some shit going on. I've stolen these files. They're actually, lying about all of us having all these things. It's the same MRI photo for everyone in these files. They're using them over and over again. All of us are just we're not sick. There isn't anything wrong with us.
This MRI has been used for everybody, and they're suckering everyone.
And he does his little side investigations, and he comes to the realization, yes, there's some shit. And right the night that she's going to be killed, he comes to the rescue, and they go off, and she kind of already had done some side, fucked up shit to the Bruce Davidson character, and he pays for it. And the Green Man actually takes his life as opposed to her life.
Yeah, because you realize early on when like her hairbrush was disappearing, and then it just mysteriously returns. It was the old classic, they're taking your hair to use in the spell.
Yeah.
So she switched her hair with Bruce Davidson's hair. So when they did the spell to conjure the tree creature to come and siphon her life force, it just killed him instead.
So now, it's like, what do we do with the 2 other ladies? What's going to happen to them? And they really plead for their fucking life. They're like, look, wouldn't you want your grandmother? And like I said earlier, they really, like, I'm not going to say they hit you over the head over and over, but it is definitely felt and known in the film of the strong connection between the grandson, how much he doesn't want his grandma to die, to go off, and how much he needs and loves her, and how much she loves dancing and how much she loved to dance, and that was the love of her life,
and just being young in general.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously just being young, but her thing was like she had something that she just loved doing, a passion, and she wanted to feel and be able to do that again. And you're like, okay, they're not gonna fall for this. They're gonna be like, no, bitch, it's over now. We're on to you. And they do plead, you can't do this. These people, you're taking their lives. Don't you feel guilty? And they're like, we're not,
they're gonna die anyhow.
Yeah, we're just upping up the number, date.
We're just pushing it a little higher. We're pushing the date a little bit, but otherwise they were gonna die anyhow. So we're just benefiting from their death. What's wrong with that? And then what surprises you with this movie is she doesn't do the typical, well, I'm going to turn you in and just go back to slowly die in the nursing home. She just kind of says, you know what? This is not a bad idea. Why don't I just participate in this?
Her and the grandson participate.
Yep. And as soon as they agree to this, they get the magic mark appears on them that you saw the others had. And
which we forgot to mention earlier. They all have like a kind of like embedded tattoo, like the sigil of the being.
Yeah, so then pretty quick, you cut to 1 year later, Mom is still in the nursing home. She's celebrating her 70th birthday, and even her daughter's like, again, I thought your 70th birthday was last year. She's looking good. She's looking a little younger. And then you see them that night. She's out there dancing by the fire. You know, she's like 20 years old or so. She's out there dancing by the fire, having a good time. And you realize, yeah, she's just keeping on with this with the others. And now she's enjoying being young for who knows how long.
I feel like there was actually other members there too, besides the two old ladies and the grandson. I feel like there was like they had maybe recruited more people.
Yeah, there was some more people out there, but I didn't know if those were just like people that were also in the home or just friends of theirs that knew about it. Maybe they were part of it. I also like that at Barbara Hershey's birthday party, you get to see some other horror fans or horror directors in there that horror fans will pick up on. You can't disguise Mick Garris.
No, I'm like, it was like, it's Mick Garris. I'm like, yeah, of course it is. Look at him. Like,
first of all, he's 7 feet tall, and then he's got the very distinctive hair. So you're like, wow, that's Mick Garris. He's in there. And then William Malone that did like The House on Haunted Hill and some others. He was in there, and Mike Mendez that did like Big Ass Spider and some other horror movies like that is in it as well. And there's probably a few more in there, but those are the only ones that I was able to pick out.
So yeah, that was pretty neat. Overall, I give the film 3 knives.
Yeah, I will too. I'll say it's a 3 out of 4. It's good.
It's good and it's short. It doesn't. It paces fine.
Yeah, the pace is fine. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Because I could see where you could get caught in a trap of this, where we had to have a lot of scenes of her in the nursing home to try and build that up. But what they did worked perfectly, and there was no reason for it to be any longer.
Yeah, it's like 80 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 82 minutes, which is fine. You know, they told a great story without having to overstay their welcome. I'm perfectly fine with that.
I love the story. I love the end. It's just, it's great. And it, you know, if this could have been a good episode of like, if this would have been like a Tales from the Dark Side or a Creep Show, whatever, it could have fit in there. If they cut it a little bit, you know, maybe there was a part where they could have done that probably in the beginning with the whole building up of her character and like the relationship, but you don't feel.
But if you also said this is a Tales from the Crypt movie or something like that, I would have went with it and said, okay, because both of those are pretty short. So I would have just said, all right, that's fine. It's a good like twist ending to it. So yeah, I was happy with it. Yeah,
I really, really enjoyed this film. And I hope you check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called The Manor, starring Barbara Hershey. And stay tuned to the horror.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.